can do without it. Only you, baby. Got food out this fire, running in my soul. I had it at last. She couldn't do without it. I just had to give it out. You know what she said to me? She said, come on, honey, take it, take it, take it, take it, take it, take it. Oh gosh, I just can't do without it. Hello, Steve. I want some more of that stuff. Sue with me. I got it all. I just had to put out the fire. She said, take it, take it, take it, take it.
So we're seeing the what, right?
That you're all here. Our forum topic today is green shoots, how parents' lived experiences, tenacity and teamwork have produced green shoots of inclusion within the child protection system. And today is also the UN's Global Day of Parents, which is celebrated annually on June the 1st. My name's Jo Mason. So just quickly before we start, for those of us that are physically here, I'll talk you through some housekeeping. So here at the Queensland Multicultural Centre, there is, if you're looking for bathrooms, you would have walked past them through that door there, and that's also the way to the exit. So just so you're aware. So to start today, I'd like to welcome Justine Sandy Roma, a Yagara woman who's going to deliver our welcome to country. Sandy. Thank you, Justine.
Malacha, Maramba, Ninimbu. Welcome, good morning. I'm Justine Sandy Roma, a proud Nunako Yagra, Bachelor Durumba woman. Today, you stand on Yagra country. I'm a descendant of my great-great-grandfather, Billen Billen. King of Yurongpan, Sandy Land. I'd like to acknowledge my ancestors, past and present, in which the place we gather on here today. Malacha, welcome. Yutang, thank you. Yuway, goodbye.
Thank you, Justine. And now I'd like to introduce Karen Walsh, the CEO of Micah Projects. Thanks, Karen.
Good morning, everyone, both those present and those who are Zooming in, and especially our friends from WA. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners, and thank you, Sandy, for coming with us today to acknowledge the land on which we meet, but also the contribution that Indigenous people provide to inspire us all to do better when it comes to keeping families together. I'd like to welcome all the parents here today, and I acknowledge the fundamental role that you play in nurturing your children and in shaping our community, and we are very pleased that you are now playing a role in shaping the child protection system. The theme of the United Nations Global Day of Parents is to honour and appreciate the effort that parents have made towards their children. The theme obviously this year was around the extra additional efforts that parents had to make during COVID, but we also today want to acknowledge the enormous efforts that parents pay to work within the challenges and the barriers and the opportunities sometimes of engaging with the service system and the child protection system. And we particularly honour and respect the voice that you give to your experience across Australia in helping child protection systems understand that you have insight, you have knowledge and you have wisdom, and that you love and want the best for your children. I acknowledge the Honourable Leanne Linard, Minister for Children, Youth Service and Minister of Multicultural Affairs. We're really glad you're here. We know that you have a background of parliamentary committees and being in government and work in government, and we just had our first meeting of the Queensland Parent Advisory Committee with you, and we're really honoured that you are committed to the process that was begun. Also, your senior staff, Kate Connors and Dr Megan Crawford and others from the department. And we know that Deirdre Mulcairn, as the DG, is very committed as well and has sent her apologies as she had a long-standing previous commitment. We acknowledge too that we get funding for this event, and we thank the department for supporting us so that we can join together across Australia with the different initiatives and experiences and voices of parents. Life Without Barriers assisted in bringing our New South Wales colleagues to Queensland again, and it's great to see you back for the second time, as well as the new parent advocates. And I acknowledge our local team, Jenny, Talia, Dia, Monique, Magella and Co, that all helped make today happen. As you know, we now have to be very adaptable in having people in the room and people out of the room when we have events like this following COVID. But we are here today to mostly listen to parents. So I'd just like to invite the Honourable Leanne Linard, Minister, to come and say a few words before we listen to what parents have to share with us today.
Thank you, Karen. And I too start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting this morning and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I grew up on Ngunnawal, Larrica and Turrbal land, and I'm raising my family on Turrbal land. Can I also acknowledge all of the, and most importantly, the parents in the room and our parent advocates. I also acknowledge you, Karen, and Micah, for the great contribution that you make in this space. But equally, I acknowledge those members of my department who are here today, including my Deputy Director General, Kate, and Dr Megan Crawford, who I mentioned her ears would be burning this morning when we were talking about you. So everyone look at, this is Dr Crawford, who we mentioned this morning. Memorise that face. But I honour the department who are here today too, listening, because we do want to engage so meaningfully and honestly with you. So I thank my team for being here today. Joe, your lovely host for today, Family Inclusion Network representatives from Queensland and interstate, and of course all invited guests. It is my great pleasure to be here today with the Family Inclusion Network to recognise the United Nations Global Day of Parents. And the theme of today's forum, which we've heard, is Green Shoots, based on Jessica Cox's Churchill Fellowship, which explored the role parents and family themselves could play in peer parent and family advocacy. Jessica found that while Australian child protection systems had not traditionally focused on peer parent and family advocacy systems, there are green shoot initiatives, new and vulnerable, developing here in Queensland and around the country. And soon you will hear how parents with lived experience have produced the first new green shoots of inclusion within the child protection system. 3 years ago on this very day, my predecessor, Di Farmer, committed to establishing a parent-led advisory committee. And that commitment became a reality in 2019 with the creation of the Queensland Parents Advisory Committee, a committee created for parents by parents. This committee was an Australian first, the only one of its kind, bringing together child protection workers, ministers and parents to make the system better. Earlier this morning, I had the privilege of attending the committee meeting and speaking with these remarkable members who are in the room today. I want to thank each of you again, as I did in that meeting this morning, for your courage to share your views and your stories at a platform where your voices of lived experience can and are and will make real and meaningful change for other families and children in the system. You have critical messages to convey, and we have begun to really see and hear the influence of those voices. I'm pleased to say the committee has engaged in formal consultations with my department and will continue to do so under me as the new minister. And if I can just mention that yesterday I was with Minister Di Farmer and mentioned to her that I was coming to speak with you today, and I said, Di, what should I expect? And she just said, you will be moved, Leanne. You will be moved by personal experience, and of course as a parent, how can you not? How can you not be moved by the honesty and rawness in the room? So thank you so much for your time today. As a part of this process, I just wanted to acknowledge a few wins that you've had. So if that's okay, I know you know these wins, but it's nice to celebrate you. So it means members have provided feedback on how to improve the system so that we provide the right service at the right time to families who need support. As part of this process, parents met with legal representatives, including the department's child and family official solicitor. This led to my department accepting suggestions to provide better information and improve communication about legal processes. I recognise there is more to be done, but I'm delighted to say that we can see the green shoots of inclusion in Queensland. Green shoots like Queensland's Office of the Family and Child Official Solicitor working directly with parents to develop a resource, advising parents of their legal rights and options at the point their children are removed from their care. Like developing a new training resource for Queensland's child safety officers, teaching our professionals about the trauma and hardship parents face as they navigate the child protection system. And like developing parent consumer groups in Toowoomba and Ipswich to provide forums for local parents to speak to senior departmental staff to influence system change at a regional level. QPAC has been running for only 3 years, and in that time there has been real and meaningful change, but there is more to be done. Meeting with parents today, what I left with, if I can just give one observation and then hand over to you, because I know you've got wonderful speakers behind me here. What's clear from the meeting this morning is that we are all parents who adore our children, and we're parents who really honour that parent-child bond is sacred. And we all want children to be happy, we all want children to be safe, and we all want every child in Queensland to have opportunities to live a meaningful and safe life. And those are the things that we can agree on, and they provide a very strong platform from which to move and continue to go forward, to work together as a system, whether you're a parent in that system, or you're the minister of that system, or you're the Deputy Director General of that system, or Dr Crawford, you're the Chief Practitioner guiding that system. We're all at the same table with the same aims. So I hope that you feel that shared heart and aim today. So today I encourage everyone to listen and reflect on the comments and stories shared by panel members. Through inclusion, continued partnerships and initiatives like the Queensland Parents Advisory Committee, we are building a better system for children and families, and I look forward to working with you in the years ahead. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Minister. It's great to hear your support of the parent advocates, and I love the way you summarised the way that as parents we feel about our children and what we want for them. So thank you for that.
Sharlene.
So on that note, let's start with the welcome to the panel colleagues that are here today and on the screens that you can see in front of you. I think let's start with each of us introducing ourselves briefly so that everybody knows who each other is. And obviously we'll be hearing more about the parent advocates, your role in advocating for parents as we answer some questions on the panel later on. So I'll start because I've got the microphone at the moment. My name's Jo Mason and I'm your host today. I'm very proud to be back this year. I did it last year as well and it was an incredible event. I have lived experience of domestic violence and I'm a very proud member of MICA Project and Brisbane Domestic Violence Services, Resound Voices of Experience group, which is another advocacy group. And so I can really see the value to this work. So that's me. Now I hand over to you, Jess.
Hello everyone, my name's Jessica Cox. I work at Life Without Barriers and I'm also a co-founder of Family Inclusion Strategies in the Hunter, which is on beautiful Awabakal country in the great city of Newcastle. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, and I'm Felicity. I am the President of Family Inclusion Strategies in the Hunter and I'm also a peer advocate, peer worker, a parent with lived experience of the child protection system.
Hi, my name's Leanne Claussen. I'm the CEO of Parents on a Mission.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm a parent advocate with Family Inclusion Network South East Queensland.
Deb, over to you.
Debbie Henderson. I'm the CEO of Family Inclusion Network in WA.
Thank
and
you.
It's great to be here.
Thanks, Deb. And Renna?
Hi, I'm Renna, and I want to acknowledge you from the Wajak people here from our nation. Pay respects. So I'm a family partner that we call our key workers here. I've been working with them for a number of years now.
Thank you. And Sharlene?
Yeah, my name's Sharlene and I'm a paid peer worker in WA and a family partner as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Just before we kick off with our questions this morning, if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them. So for those of you that are here in person, when you came in, you may have received a card that has a QR code on it. If you use that QR code, you can actually submit questions that way. For those of you that, and we will be passing a microphone if we get time later, and for those of you that are online, you can submit questions as well. We will answer questions, as I say, if we have time. If not, we will come back to you at a later date with responses. So please keep those questions coming. We've had a couple in already. So first up, Jess. You've completed a Churchill Scholarship on Family Inclusion, and earlier this year you published a Policy Futures paper called Peer, Parent and Family Advocacy in Child Protection, a Pathway to Better Outcomes for Kids. The title for today's forum, Green Shoots, came from that policy paper, and in it you said, and I quote, "Despite success overseas, peer, parent and family advocacy remains almost entirely absent from Australian child protection systems. The green shoot initiatives that are emerging are new and vulnerable. Implementation more broadly is very achievable if properly supported. Peer advocacy can be readily integrated into our system. It is a cost-effective and will make a significant and long-lasting difference." In less than a few minutes, can you share some data or lessons from the evidence and from your research?
I'll do my best. Thanks, Jo. And today it feels like those green shoots are really healthy and strong. And even since publishing that article, I feel like the momentum continues to build. And Queensland is absolutely leading the way. So I want to really acknowledge the important work that Micah is doing, that Finn South East Queensland are doing in partnership with you, Minister, and your department. It's absolutely leading the country. That QPAC rocks. But it's true that parent-peer initiatives are new and that the vast majority of Australian parents who are navigating this complex and traumatic system don't get the opportunity to readily connect with people who know what it's like and who've been through it. And yet the data on peer-parent advocacy overseas is genuinely compelling. And here I come with the numbers. So in 1992, in New York City, there were 50,000 kids in care. New York City is somewhat bigger than the jurisdiction of New South Wales, which is our biggest jurisdiction. In 2020, in New York City, there are 8,000 children in care. So the difference is stark. And a key change that happened over that period of time, and the number dropped actually well before 2020, is the integration of parent and family advocacy across the system. So in policy, in individual casework, across the system. And just for comparison, New South Wales has 17,000 kids in care as we speak. So more data that matters in this space. In Australia, we have 46,000 kids in care, and that number continues to grow. It's big. When I did my Churchill Fellowship, it was 38,000, so it's growing. Stays in care in Australia, children stay in care too long. Most children stay for more than 2 years, and a lot stay a lot longer than that, as we all know here. And in Australia, the recent Child Protection Australia report has identified that we have a reunification rate of around 20%. Now that's the statistic that matters in terms of changing the number of kids in care. In New York City, there are 8,000 kids in care. They stay for a shorter time, and their reunification rate is 65%. Some agencies are achieving over 80%. So I just ask us to reflect on those numbers and really see them as a call to make change happen in Australia. We can do it. If they can do it, we can do it. We don't have to settle for those low reunification rates, and kids really need us to invest in parent and family-led change to make, and parent and family peer advocacy in particular, so that we can do it too.
Wow, thank you, Jess. There's some incredible numbers. What an interesting comparison as well. That's food for all of us to think about. Felicity, you're a parent, a peer worker, and a co-founder of FISH, Family Inclusion Strategies in the Hunter. Can you please talk about the Parent Peer Support Project in Newcastle that's now been written about in the recently released report from Little Things, Big Things Are Coming?
Yeah, thank you. So firstly, Family Inclusion Strategies in the Hunter, we just say FISH to make it so much easier, is an organisation of workers and parents. In that organisation, we have been thinking about what are some of the hardest times for parents going through the system. And, I guess on the screen it shows what we have been doing, but the biggest thing we found was at court, parents felt alone. They were left with nobody, no support, no nothing, not understanding the language at court, not understanding actually what's even happening. So we've been able to get some parents in the court waiting rooms, and we sit with parents and we just support parents throughout the day on the child protection days. We're not lawyers, we're not DCJ workers, we are simply just another parent there supporting and listening to parents and help navigating the system with them where we can. In this data that is showing, it is showed a lot of mothers, we're seeing a lot of mothers at the court. We're now seeing a slight increase of fathers coming, Also, we do have a little bit of funding, nothing much. We still need lots of funding. We love donations, and on the screen it shows voluntary versus paid, and the paid stuff is increasing, which is great. But we do a lot of voluntary work, and we're very happy to do that stuff because none of this is really happening elsewhere, other than what was mentioned. And and parents need somebody. If parents are going to change their life, they need some hope. They need some support. So we're an organisation that is trying to extend ourselves where we can. We have a phone line because of COVID, so parents still had access of support. And we have a morning tea that's ran simply by parents for parents, and we're just about to launch in a couple of weeks a parent restoration, and that was made up by me and another parent, and we're running that for parents, So some great stuff are happening there, but it's just not enough. I guess for me, what I look at, and when I speak to parents, there's never gonna be enough, but we need a little bit out there for people. And, Queensland is doing an amazing job, and, we're really happy to be up here supporting Queensland again, because the more the better. And if we help the parent, we help the children. Without their family being okay, the children are never going to be okay fully because they want their family, So if we can support mum and dad and everybody else as much as we can, these children are going to be so happy. I know my children are happy because I'm supported, So, that's about it.
Thanks, Felicity. I mean, that's amazing, and you can so clearly see the difference that work would do. I've got so many questions for you that we don't have time, and I'm sure that many of you have got questions too. So please remember to submit any questions that you have, and we'll try and get to them. So to Queensland and Leanne, you've had 12 years' experience of the child protection system in Queensland, and this has brought you to centre stage today, presenting at Global Day of Parents. I know you were here a couple of years ago in 2019 as well. How have you been able to go from being a parent in the system to being a change agent within the system?
It's what a lot of people ask me, so I'll make a long story very short. So I was one of those parents who was very angry, and for about 5 years or so I just really fought the system. And I had this worker that I had a lot of issues with, and I was only having monthly contact with my children. And I'm a mum who really wanted something to do with my children. I wanted to know about my children. And I just didn't have any information about what was happening. And one day I just sat there and kind of broke down, and I was like, what can I do? What do I need to do to actually change what's going on? And I came to this bit of an epiphany that in order to change my relationship with my kids, I actually needed to first change my relationship with my worker. And it was an extremely hard thing to do, but I was able to move myself out of the mindset of being angry and upset at everything that was going on. And I was able to focus on what was most important, which was my children. The worker, I realised, had my children's best interests at heart. I came at it from that angle, and we started to work together for my children. And that was an amazing thing, and lots of things have actually come from that. So one of the other things that happened with that is that because I had been able to move myself out of this mindset and been able to, once you sort of move yourself out of that, you're able to see a lot more. You're able to sort of look at what other things are going on. And throughout my experience of all these years of my kids being in care, I've learnt a lot. I've gone to a lot of different courses, and I've learned about all different types of things. And one of the things I learned about was the psychology of what happens with kids when they're in care, and the fact that kids really need to make a bond with either a carer, a worker, someone that's in their life that's important to them. And parents struggle with that. Parents struggle when kids are very close to the carers or workers, etc., because the worker represents what has happened, the kids have been taken. So I was at this particular contact, and I was quite upset at the worker because she'd gone through drive-through and got my kids McDonald's, and I'm sort of sitting here doing the right thing, bringing healthy food to contact. And my kids were sort of sitting there with this worker, and they were, chatting to her, laughing and everything like that. And in that moment of clarity, of actually having, taking myself out of my story and looking at the situation in front of me, I actually realised in that moment that this worker was that person for my children. And so as a mum, I made a decision at that point that I had to actually support and encourage that positive relationship that my children had started to develop with this worker. And it was a very difficult thing to do, but I did it. I would go over there, I would interact with them. When she told them, the kids, to do something and they didn't want to do it, I supported her and encouraged the kids to do it. She in turn saw that I was doing that, and then she started to do it with me. And so this first thing that I did with being able to raise myself out of my story, seeing that the worker as a way to have a better relationship with my children, that flourished, and it was able to continue on with my children. So I'm very fortunate to be able to be here today to talk to you about this and to tell everybody that what I have done can be replicated. We can teach parents to come out of their story, even if it's just for the time that you're in a meeting, for the time that you're at contact, just to do that so that the focus can be on the children, which is the most important people in this whole thing. We're all adults. We can handle it. The children, they can't, and we need to be there to support them. you know. So this is the most important thing. And one of the other things that's most important is that staff can identify when parents are actually trying to do this. So it might be a subtle thing the parent does, but if the staff can recognise that the parents are doing it, then that will help in that relationship. And if children see us working all together as a team, then they will feel supported by that team. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. That was incredible, and just to hear your insights and think about the bravery and the compassion, and just underpinned by the love you have for your children, is just incredible. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Now I'd like to talk to Deb, and how wonderful to have this truly national panel. I hope the policy leaders are watching all around the states. Deb, can you start by letting us know briefly what family inclusion looks like in WA?
Oh, I think let me start by saying how wonderful it is to actually be joining everybody in this platform. It's a great opportunity for us who feel so isolated from what happens on the East Coast. It's evident that the family inclusion networks throughout Australia are very different. We're all unique, and our example is, evident to that, I think, and that we've been a funded service since 2008. And we have been providing systemic advocacy and individual advocacy throughout that time. We are funded by the Department of Communities, Child Protection and Family Support, and we actually employ professional social workers as our advocates. But where family inclusion is central to our organisation is that we actually developed out of a grassroots movement of parents and community members back in 2003. And I think Renna was involved with us in those early days. And it was from there that really a movement of the community has helped establish where we're at today. So parents and family members have been central to all that we've done on our journey. When we became a funded service, parents have always been members. There's always been positions on our board of management, and parents at that level have always been included in the hiring of staff through to strategic planning and systems advocacy. But I guess 4 years ago, we actually had a deliberate conversation. We started a deliberate conversation about how we could embed parents in our service delivery. And we started that conversation. Obviously, we did that with parents, but also with the community, because this was going to be a very different way of working. So we've been working with the community around how parent advocates would look in the system here in Perth and WA. And 2.5 years ago, we started co-designing a family partner or peer training package. And that's where a number of our parents have trained up as family partners, of which Sharlene and Renna are two of our family partners. And recently, Sharlene became a paid employee. But so parents are essential in all aspects of our work. And I'll actually let Sharlene and Renna speak to the work that they do with us here in FinWA. So maybe over to you, Sharlene.
involved. She's comes to drop in, and I've taken her to Dress for Success, which is another group that we're working with. So she has new clothes for court. We've also done a self-advocacy workshop. So the family partners are planning to do a workshop that basically encourages people on the wait list. So rather than waiting for weeks and weeks to get an advocate, families can come to the office and talk through the practical strategies with the family partners and get support from others going through the process. So the topics that are included in that are preparing for meetings, managing emotions, clear communication, developing support networks and maintaining self-care. This is also run by 2 family partners. It's about giving them knowledge, because knowledge is power in a powerless situation. Also sitting on the panel to select new foster carers for key assets, along with professionals, a person who is a child in care, and I will be sitting on the panel to interview and recommend new foster carers. Key Assets has invited the parent perspective on how to explain new services to parents. So family partners have provided feedback on the design and artwork for new brochures, and this has led to significant changes in the wording and colours. It's also shifted the perspective of the workers in the service. So to you now, Renna.
Yeah, cool. So some of the other work that, leading on from what Sharlene's been talking about with key assets, we've been doing co-delivering some training to key assets and other foster care organisations. And look, my experience of being involved in that is that carers exactly want the same thing that we want for our kids. They want the best. And I heard Leanne talking about relationship, and for me that's key to being able to do better by our children, do better by each other. A lot of the carers that have come to these training days have really enjoyed the time to be able to rebuild a relationship with parents, maybe parents who aren't directly related, but we can each see, and it's helped me too to get a better understanding of carers' position and how they feel. It does warm my heart to think that there are other adults who care for our kids as much as what we will for our kids. The other thing I really wanted to talk about, and I think it's also something that Leanne's done, but when we started the parent training package, started to unpack that, I remember Debbie and Jackie coming to us and saying to us parents, what is it that you really wanted when your children were apprehended? What was it that you didn't get that you think would make a real difference? And I sort of said, I wish I had had like this pack of not overwhelming information. I wish somebody had told me to take notes, to keep a track of every phone call I'd tried to make, because I don't think I had access to email then. We're talking a decade ago when my kids were first apprehended. But I had no clue. I couldn't make sense of stuff. And Felicity was talking too about, just even having someone to sit with me to not just understand the language that was being used, but also to make some sense and some meaning of what was happening. So what we came up with is what we call the parent packs. And from what I hear from Sharlene and a few other people in Fin is that parents quite often will show up to meetings and court dates now with this beautiful pack that we've given them. When I've sat with parents to give it, they're like, is this for me? And I feel really bad that this is the gift I can give you right now. And what's contained in the pack was we all came together and had some ideas. So I was really keen on the calendars to remind people to map everything, and the journals so that you can write out what was happening and just, it helps me to make, journaling really helps me to make sense of things. I think Sharlene went out and got some donations and we were able to include in these packs some beautiful little hand creams, some towels, a packet of tissues, things that people can use practically when they're in meetings or preparing for meetings or court dates. And we also included a mindfulness colouring in book and some little pencils so that even if you take them to a contact visit, you've got something there that you can do with your children, like a picture, or you can do it on your own. Like the pack that we've developed also has some clear sheets. So we Fin have some tip sheets that are less overwhelming than getting every pamphlet off the shelf or looking at a website that the department has with policies and procedures. And when we sit with parents, we put these tip sheets together based on their need at the time. We really don't want for parents to be overwhelmed with too much information, and we want to be able to target what it is that they need to be able to take home. The first sheet that we always have is who Finwa is, what we do, and some really important contact numbers. So all of those things just to try and help parents who are going through the chaos of what happens with internally when your children are taken into care, and just to try and compartmentalise, make some sense of things, and remember that self-care is key. Of course, if there's any questions after this, we'll be really happy. We're going to sit on the panel. We'll stay in the virtual with you all for the rest of this conference, and I know that Debbie's willing to filter any questions back through to all of the family partners later, and we'll make sure that they're answered.
Thanks, guys. Some great information and points there, and there seems to be an emerging theme about doing better by each other, but also just that point about that parenting pack. It sounds like it would make such a difference to somebody in such a difficult situation, so thank you. Maddie, you're a mum, a graduate of the Parent Leadership Training Institute, or PLTI. You've also this year started as a paid parent advocate in South East Queensland. I understand that your type of advocacy is different. It's systemic advocacy, which is different from individual advocacy. But I understand you still speak with parents. So what do they get from you as a systems advocate? And what do you think is the value of your role? Although we know it's early days, but...
Very early days. So I've been in the role now for a couple of months. And, I think the biggest thing, or the most meaningful thing to parents that they tell me that they get from me is just being listened to, really deeply listened to and heard. I speak with parents and oftentimes they'll say, no one's ever actually stopped and listened to what I have to say without interrupting, without prejudice. I'm not judge, nor am I jury. I'm not here to judge anybody. I know that any single one of us can fall victim to these broken systems at any point, and that everybody deserves the right to be heard and understood and acknowledged, not to be told that your story is wrong, that people's truths, there's value in that, and that we can learn from that on a systemic level. So I don't go with parents to child safety meetings. I don't get involved in individual cases. Every time I have a conversation with a parent, I'm thinking about how I can link issues back to the 5 solutions that the Queensland Parent Advisory Committee has put together, whether it's intensive trauma-informed training, paid parent advocates, there's a range of things. I'm always trying to link it back to, so that when I go into a meeting and I speak with somebody who's quite influential, who can change these things tomorrow or next week, or maybe we can work towards changing it. I can elevate those stories and those truths and really honour what parents have struggled through, so that we can change the future for everybody. And one of the parents on the Queensland Parent Advisory Committee once said that we're planting a seed for a tree that we may never sit underneath. And I find that so humbling that I can be a part of a process on a systems level where we shift a culture around parents and around interacting with the child protection system. And to say that it's solely the child protection system would be an injustice to what parents have gone through. It's not just, docs or whatever it's called in your state. It's housing. It's parents having to wait months to years to move for a transfer for housing to be closer to their community and their support, or to be closer to their children. It's health, it's education, it's police, the criminal justice system, it's everything all together. You can't take a siloed approach. And I think that's the real beauty and the value in systemic advocacy, is being able to identify that, but also speaking with parents and being able to link parents up to where systems need the voices of parents, because they're stakeholders in all of this, and it should be a system that's built to help and support people through hard times, not to penalise them and to judge them. And we don't really see that in any other sector, but for some reason it happens with parents when, it's the hardest job in the world when you have the most resources, so it's even harder if you don't have any resources whatsoever. So I think, we really need to put a lot more value into parent advocates, and people need to be paid for their time and their expertise. And that's how we can show the value on that. And, parent advocates working alongside family support workers to really offer that wraparound of expertise. I've been through this, I understand what you're going through, I get it. The tacit knowledge and also the book smarts, because what we've been through, you can never ever read, you can't learn that. You cannot learn that out of any book. So I think we really have a great opportunity to work collaboratively, parents, social workers, government, to work towards a better future for all of our kids.
Thanks, Maddie. And obviously that question was about value, and it's so clear to see the value of the work that you're doing from an advocacy perspective, but also connecting parents to the resources and the people and the organisations they need, but also having that empathy and understanding that where you listen to somebody and actually hear them and give them that time and energy. So amazing work. Leanne, back to you. So just quickly, before we ask the audience for questions, you've already shared your experience, but you also had another vision some years ago to help other parents. So can you tell us briefly about Leanne's gift and give it a bit of a plug?
Sure. Okay, so basically, after I got through the parts that I've been talking to you about today, I started to think of what I would have liked to have been able to have access to at the beginning of my case. And what came to mind was the bounty bag that you get when you get pregnant at the hospital. So I started to gather information together. The department have some great PDFs out there, Legal Aid have some great PDFs out there, Legal Aid application form. Then I started to look at, okay, so what's my knowledge? And so I started to write down all the knowledge from all these years of going to through all these different things. I've been through so many different processes within the system. And I also looked at the language. I had workers talking to me about scaffolding around my children. I'm sorry, but the only scaffolding I knew about was on buildings. So I had to learn this whole new language. So I put all this information together in one pack, and I also contacted community organisations and got them to put their information in the pack as well. I also talked to other parents. I've got other parents' words in there. I've got a section for dads as well, because dads are sometimes left out of this conversation. And I put this pack together, and I've been able to sell it to different organisations and some to the department and to parents. And it's been an amazing thing to have people come back to me and say to me, that helped me. I was sitting there at 4 o'clock in the morning and I was reading something that you had written, and I felt the exact same way, and I just cried. And to hear that that people are actually getting the value from this is just amazing. So I have them for sale on my website. It's www.parentsonamission.com.au. It's behind me on the monitor. And it's really affordable prices. And I'm trying to get them out through service centres, through community agencies, to parents themselves, and I'm looking at other avenues as well. This is something that I've got parents from New South Wales and different states contacting me about the pack as well. There's information in the pack for everyone, because we have all gone through the same type of process, and all the support and advice and everything is still the same. But I would really like to take it even further and to make a pack for every single state with the name of their department, plus all the different changes with legislation and everything with them. I'd also like to create it into different languages. So I would like to tell you that at the front at the moment there's a bag at the front you can have a look at. I'm available to take orders today if you like. Just know that I've done this as a heart project. I've done this because I wanted to take all of that knowledge and experience from all the years I've had in the system, and I wanted to give all that to others, because I believe that the message of Leanne's gift, which is we are all working together, is really important, to be able to help parents to come out of their story, to help them know that they can have a positive relationship with their workers, and to also help them learn what they can do to support their children through this really difficult time. So, thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. What a legacy. And thank you for sharing that and for developing that incredible tool that I'm sure makes such a difference to people who need to hear from somebody who understands how they're feeling. So thank you. Well, so far today we've heard from some incredible subject matter experts, and there's been some fantastic learnings and insights. But now it's over to you, as the audience, to ask questions that you may have raised whilst everyone's been speaking. So I'll get you to have a think if anyone would like to ask a question. We've already had one come in online that I'm going to put to the panel. Whilst we're waiting for any other questions to come through, what advice would you give to all the new families out there who've just got involved with the Department of Child Safety? Would anyone like to answer that? Okay, Maddie, and then we'll go to Renna and then Leanne. Is that okay?
Get legal advice straight away. Make that a priority, just to find a lawyer, whether it's through state-funded law services or you have the resources to be able to do that privately, then definitely speak with a lawyer.
Thank you. Renna, what's your advice?
Look, I was just going to echo what Maddie said. Just know your rights. Know what your responsibilities are, what the department's obligations to both you and your children are, and find an advocate. Advocacy.
Thank you. And Leanne, what's your advice?
I'd first ask them to seek support, because I think that's one of the most essential things. When this happens, you collapse, you go into a heap. You have no idea what's happened, what's going to happen, and it's a really, really difficult situation to be in. So I'd first ask them to get some support, and then have a look around at different community agencies. And a lot of community agencies have different sections to them, and some of those sections do have advocates. Not all community agencies, but some of them do. Try and find someone that you can find support from to help you with your case if possible, and start writing things down from the very beginning. I think that's really important. And also getting really clear information from the department on what it is that they're concerned about and the steps you can take to overcome those concerns.
Can I just add one thing to that? So I guess my advice is just to hold on tight. It's a roller coaster, but it's worth it. And that to remember you're not alone. There is so many people going through this stuff that you're not alone.
Thank you, guys. There's some great insights there. I've got another question here, and I'm actually going to ask it to someone in the audience. Sloane, I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot, but I can see you there. Sloane joined our panel last year, and I'm just wondering about whether the dad's perspective is being included in family inclusion work. So I'd love to hear your perspective there, Sloane.
It probably is, slowly it is, because like society now, dads are being left out. And when there is like stuff around, I don't even know the stats, but most of when children go into care, dads, they just give up because they don't know how to talk, they don't know how to fight, they don't know their rights. But things are changing. But we're still targets, kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Thanks, Sloane. Do we have any other questions? Has anybody got anything that they'd like to ask that's in the audience at the moment? Or has anything come through online?
Yeah, I'm here, Joe. I'm looking online. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny from the Family Inclusion Network. And I just wanted to build on that last question and thank Sloane, because a similar question has come through about how the Family Inclusion Network has engaged men in this initiative. So we do, Sloane is a member on the Queensland Parents Advisory Committee, and another father as well who couldn't be here today. But I wondered if there was any comment from That's Queensland to address the online question from the other states.
Yeah, I guess with Fish, we've had a couple of dads on our committee, and I guess for me personally, it has showed me that there is no difference between me as a mum and them as a dad. We're equal partners, and I have seen exactly what was said. You know, fathers not speaking up enough, not understanding what to say, realise that they have a voice, and you know, I guess it's like I always say, we are all human. You know, like let's all treat each other like humans, no matter male, female, or what that looks like. You know, but I will say at core, when I'm supporting parents, I've been seeing a lot more dads attend, and it's really amazing. And I make sure every time I'm speaking with a dad to let the dad know how amazing this is. You know, take a look around in this room, and there's not many. So, you know, you're doing an amazing job. Keep coming back. You know, you've got a voice for your your children, you know. So, yeah, we've had some dads on the committee getting to let them know that we're here. You know, we're not going anywhere, you know, and we can do this job just as good as a mum.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions that have come through, Jenny?
Yep, sure. There's someone's been really inspired, Jess, by the compelling data that you put forward early in the panel about the impact of family inclusion in reunification and reducing the numbers of children in care. And the question asks, based on what you learnt in your Churchill Fellowship, if you were a DG of a state department and could change the trajectory in a state, what would you say? You ready? What do you say is the top 3 things that you would change in the system? It's a question to you, Jess, but I would imagine that everyone has their top 3 as well.
Yeah, and look, I would really encourage DGs to not just consult with parents and family, but to hand over the reins of leadership in a significant way to create a space for parents and family to lead change in our system. We have for too many years in child protection relied on traditional expertise from, you know, people like myself and lots of other people in this room, and that's a very important thing to have as part of the system. But that lived experience expertise is just as important. And for that, I think my message to DGs is let's build that leadership. Let's take it seriously. Let's challenge those power imbalances. And most importantly, let's integrate parent and family advocacy into our child protection system across the board. I mean, I guess I'm 3 things. Now I've got to think of something else. Reflecting back on my Churchill Fellowship and on some sort of key things that we're doing in the organisation that I work for, Life Without Barriers, is that we're really trying hard to build a new understanding of what foster and kinship care is, that it's a that we need to do foster and kinship care in a family inclusive way, where carers and parents and family have a natural and normal relationship so that children can experience normal lives, so that carers can help drive reunification, and that they're not sort of isolated, parents and family and children and carers aren't isolated from each other. I think if we could see family inclusive foster care and kinship care, that could be a game changer. But parent advocacy is my number one. Over to you guys.
I'd just say, fun fish. Let us do the work. We can do this stuff. For 7 years, we've been showing that we can do this stuff, and I guess it's not just fish that does this stuff. Like, I'm not just the only parent that can do this stuff, If we give the time and the space, there is hundreds of parents that can advocate for children and family, and I guess it's very simple. Parents have the answers at the end of the day. When my children was taken, not one person asked me what my children were allergic to. So these people had my kids not knowing if they had allergies. I had the answer right there, and I guess that's what I got to remember when speaking to parents and listening to parents is they've got these answers. You just got to give them space, support, give them the training, the education, and they're there, So I guess put all your work into parents, and that's leading meetings, where there is responsibilities in a case meeting, where the worker's going to go to the school, or the worker's going to do this, or the worker's going to do that, add the parent's name somewhere in there. Let the parent have a job, because we can do that stuff. We want that stuff, So, I speak for lots of parents. I go, just give us a go, and fun fish, and everybody else.
Jo, I think Renna had.
Renna, over to you.
I was just going to say, here in WA, we've just seen the launch of a pilot project being Aboriginal family-led decision-making. And look, it remains to be seen how that's going to play out in the different regions over the coming years, because there is no set framework, no one-size-fits-all way to approach this Aboriginal family decision-making. But at the core of it, it's about making children as part of a community. And I think that this is something that is very important, considering the punishment rates of Aboriginal children in care. But I think it's also something that that can be applied across the board, because I think that again, it comes back to that relationship building, and I hear exactly what Maddie's saying about, and all of the panel is saying, so listening to that, about not excluding carers from making sure that what we're actually doing is building community around these children. Essentially, that's why they've been taken into care, is concerns that there are gaps in what the parents can provide in terms of safety and security and networks. So I think it's going to be a good idea to watch the space. I think the Aboriginal family-led decision-making, I believe it's being in other states, and I'm very curious to see how it plays out for different people in different areas.
Thanks, Renna. And I think, Leanne, were you about to make a point before? And Deb, I'll come back to you in a sec.
I guess parent advocacy is something that people who contact me, they want more than anything. The first thing they want is to be heard. The second thing they want is to find out, okay, so I've come to parents on a mission, what can you help me with? Can you come to court with me? Can you talk to the CSO? Can you, Child Safety Officer for those who are in other states. What can you do? And unfortunately, I can't offer them what they want. It is absolutely essential that we get some services in to help parents, because helping parents then helps the children. If we can get that, just that one core thing, and say, advocates are important across the board, and that includes everything to do with court and everything else. And then the next step is something I've thought about, and if I were a DG, I'd want to implement something like this. I'm looking at how do we then get all the different parents. So I thought of something, I'm an out-of-the-box thinker, and I think about things all the time. And so I've called this Parents as Partners, a Parents as Partners program. So what we could do is we could have it sector-wide. If you're in a community service and you're working with a parent, and the parent is demonstrating that they would be have worked on themselves to such an extent that they would be able to help another parent, and they could be referred to the program. Parents could self-refer themselves, and we could open up service centres, and we could put in pathways for parents through service centres where the workers in the centres are not just looking at the things that the parent's done wrong, but at certain points the workers can say, I think that parent, I can identify that parent would be great to help another parent. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had people in our service centres actually looking out for the positives in parents? So I can see that as the next step, as finding how we can get all these people that need to become the advocates. Because you can have people that are social workers or have different degrees and everything, but it's that parent-on-parent work that's the most important. If you've got a parent who's had a drug problem, and they've been able to overcome that, put them with another parent who's had a drug problem, person in domestic violence, and it goes on and on. So this is one of the main things that I think really needs to be implemented. And I would love to see Leanne's gift go out properly, because I really feel that that's something that this resource not only helps parents, but it also helps staff, and it helps relationship between parents and staff, parents and their children, parents and carers. And that's something that's really important.
Thanks, Leanne. Deb, you had your hand up earlier as well. Is there something you'd like to add?
Yes. Obviously, I want to echo and support everything that's been said, and I think that resourcing or funding the existing services that exist in the states, that is family inclusion networks, to embed peer work as advocates is a primary goal. But I would add to that this is very different, a different way of working that our community sector and our government departments are not aligned with, and are not, I would say, potentially not feeling particularly safe about. I think there's lots of movement, and I feel like that's happening in WA, and I can't speak for any of the other states. But this is a conversation that needs to happen around changing culture and about valuing the importance of parents and families in their children's lives and in the community more broadly. So I think there needs to be a dialogue that starts from from policy, legislation, policy frameworks, training of staff in the different organisations, where we talk about family inclusion as a practice, as a non-negotiable, and so the dialogue has to be happening alongside of funding parents as peer workers in this space. One other thing I would add is that as long as we don't have parents being funded to have legal representation in a legal or court process, we won't have an equal playing field, and we don't have family or parent inclusion in that process. So I'm a strong advocate that, and I think we all are, that parents must be funded to be represented in the court process.
Thanks, Deb. There's some great insights. Maddie, do you have something to add?
Hello. There we go. Just quickly, I guess, so a parent advisory committee on a ministerial level, absolutely. Paid parent advocates, in italics, bold, underlined, paid, highlighted. And mandatory legal representation, because if you're a parent that's going into a courtroom against a department that's heavily resourced and has all the lawyers in the world, and you've been denied a lawyer, or you were told too late, and so therefore trying to organise a lawyer at the last second is impossible. Good luck. That's not an equitable process, and it should change.
Thank you. Again, more great insights today, and hopefully there are DGs and DDGs listening at the moment, and you can have a think about this feedback, which is so important. We've probably got time for one more quick question if anything's come through. Jenny, is there anything else?
Hi. Happy UN Global Day of Parents. Like you said, hardest job in the world, but most love. I've been really moved by all the knowledge that you've been sharing, and your love for your children and your commitment for all children and all families. I guess one of the questions that first a comment, I guess, is that probably from your story, Leanne, but absolutely across the board from what everyone else has been sharing, you identified connection into your own insight and moving forward through a time that was really challenging and involving your own trauma as well as for your children, but how to move forward and how to connect in with relationships. And that really moved me. And so my question, although it might already be answered, but in this space of acknowledging parent space and challenges that you might have been in, what might have helped you to be able to connect and build relationships earlier? I guess, Leanne, you talked about that was 5 years. That's 5 years of your life and 5 years of impacting on relationships with your children. And but you've shared that, and I guess across the board, I'd be really interested in that answer. What might have helped you to build those relationships? And I guess it's also creating a space that you feel happier as well.
For me, I think essentially what happened with me is that I felt alone in the whole thing. I didn't know anyone else that had had their kids taken. I was surrounded by friends who had children, and it was finding Finn that actually changed my life, because when I started to be part of the Finn network, I was part of forums with a whole lot of other parents, and they were all in different spaces. Some parents were angry, some parents were upset, some parents were okay. Finding that support helped me to start thinking of myself in an okay way, because when you're talked about in a very negative way for a long time, when things are written about you very negatively for a long time, you go into that really, your self-esteem just goes. And so it's having other people around that understand what you're going through, which is where support workers could come in. If they eventually do come in, support workers could come in right at that beginning stage to help parents, because your whole life is not this case. Your whole life is not about your children being taken, but in that time when that first happens, you're so devastated that that's all you feel, it's all you can see. And workers look at the facts in front of them, but not the whole person. So what would have helped me earlier is having someone to acknowledge that I was a person separate to the person in the file, and that that I'm worthy as a person, and to start to build up that self-esteem again, because without it, if you can't even be okay with yourself, how can you parent?
I think too, keeping in mind as well, I know for my case, when my children were taken and I had to work with the department, I didn't know how to have a relationship, let alone a healthy relationship. I didn't know how to communicate in a healthy way. My children had just been taken and I'm grieving, I'm wanting to die, and here I am expected to be able to speak okay, appropriately, and get judged on me being a human with emotions. You know, so I guess at very first, you know, remembering that we are humans and we're going to go through grief and loss and all these emotions. And, you know, it wasn't for a couple of years did I learn how to communicate in a really appropriate way. You know, today I can appropriately have meetings with the department, my family, you know, other things, you know, but I had to learn what healthy lifestyle was. You know, my mother was in care as a child, I was in care, and my children have been in care. You know, this is a couple of generations, you know, so I didn't just wake up one day and go, oh, I know how to do this stuff appropriately, you know, and now we've got services around in Queensland and WA where we've got parent advocates that can help parents learn this stuff. But at the end of the day as well, you've got to, I believe, it's not just the parent's responsibility to build that relationship. I do believe a lot of that responsibility should be on the worker to start that relationship off, you know, so, and keep trying, not just give up when things get too hard at the start. You know, any relationships has its ups and downs, you know, so bear with that family and keep going and keep trying to build that relationship.
Thank you for such a great question, and Leanne and Felicity, thank you for your answers. That's great. Look, unfortunately, that's all the questions we have time for today. But if any more have come through, we will get back to and we'll get the answers back to you. So thanks to anyone that's submitted questions. But to wrap up, I'm going to pass back to the panel. So people that are listening today will be wanting to know what next. So can I have a final comment or a call to action from each of you? Jess, what do you say?
Look, I think I've already said it. So my call to action around Australia is for us to start to trial and evaluate peer, parent and family support and advocacy initiatives, and to do that in a way that will enable us to build those to scale in the not too distant future. Just building on what these guys reminded me of when the DG question about the three things came up, is that it would be great to see specialist legal representation in this space in Australia. That is what happens in the US. They have family defence lawyers who are specially trained and supported to do this work. But most importantly, they do it alongside parent advocates. So and the evidence is compelling. Like that, they're the statistics that I'm talking about in New York, is coming out of those kinds of big programs that have really been a game changer. So that's my call to action, and then I'll shut up.
Thanks, Jess. Not thanks for shutting up. Thank you for your contribution. Felicity, what's your call to action?
I just say watch your space, you know, watch the parents come together and we will get this stuff done. I guess as a parent fighting for my children, I've done anything to get my children back, you know, and I've got a passion for this stuff, and us parents, when we're on a mission, we get things done, and we're going to get this done to just maybe make it a bit easier and help us.
No one stand in the way of a parent on a mission. And speaking of parents on a mission, Leanne, what's your call to action?
For me, I believe that, you know, we've all listened here today about the people on this panel, the people in other states, and we're just a handful of the parents that are around this country, and some may be behind the scenes, some may be right there up in front like us today, some might be doing Facebook groups, some might be trying to support other parents when they're at contact. There are so many parents out there across Australia doing this work, and I would like to put a shout out to all of those parents right now and say thank you, because it takes a lot of courage to go through this journey, come out the other side and help others. So I would like to ask Queensland Government plus all the other state governments, and really at a federal level, it would be great to have a nationwide system where we could have a group that's formed with all these different people from all these different states and get all these ideas together and have a national approach to child protection. Because you can see from all the comments here, and people are being touched by our words and our stories, how many more hearts and minds can we touch by doing this nationally, by getting dads involved, by having an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, by having coal perspectives. We need this. We need this because we're all ready. You know, a long time ago, parents stayed in the background. They were afraid to speak up. We're not afraid anymore. We're here and we're standing in our space and we're saying, listen to us. We have some of the answers that you're looking for. You know, having all these millions of dollars spent on all these different things that they bring out when things happen. Just listen to us. You know, that's where the power is. We want to empower parents to help others, to bring our voices to government and to the Australian public so that we can change the idea of a parent that loses their children. Then they don't have to have that stigma attached. We're parents who've had some things happen who just needed some help and support.
Thanks, Leanne. Maddie, what are your thoughts? What's your call to action?
Less of a call to action. I don't know. You guys can be the judge of that. But I was just in the Queensland Parent Advisory Committee meeting right before this, and I heard two of my peers say, one of them said, you know, it takes a community to raise a child, and somebody finished that with, and it takes a community to let a child down as well. And I thought, wow, that's actually really moving. And we have this great opportunity, so many opportunities to speak with parents and to hear parents across all sectors, you know, child protection, everything, to work together collaboratively, because we all want what's best for our children, right, at the end of the day. So why not work together? Paid parent advocates, consultations, whatever it is, let's get it done.
Thank you. Sharlene, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I agree that we definitely need more paid parent advocate, like working alongside the advocates. There's such a need for it.
Thank you. And Renna?
So I actually scripted this part, nothing else, because I wanted to get this bit right. So, look, we'd like to call on the WA government to adequately fund services such as FIN WA to elevate the voices and experience of birth families in the child protection space and facilitate opportunities for parents to build empowerment and self-advocacy through peer-led programs. Nationally, I call on all districts and departments to embed trauma-informed and culturally secure practices and policies that hold the humanity of people as central and kindness and empathy as best practice gold standards.
Thanks, Renna. Thanks for a well thought out answer as well. That's great. Thank you. And Deb, what are your thoughts?
I would echo what Renna and Sharlene have just stated. I would add that I would like to call on the WA government to develop a parent advisory council as what designed along the lines of what's in Queensland.
Thank you. Some great advice and calls to action there. And I think to add to that, join your local family inclusion network or FIN is a good call to action as well. So I think that wraps up everything for today. And I'd like to acknowledge all the parents in the room and all the parents online. Those of us that are parents understand that it's the greatest privilege and also the greatest challenge going hand in hand. So hats off to everybody that is a parent, and it's wonderful to see that so many conversations are around the child being the most important thing that in these conversations. So thank you to everybody for coming today, and I'd like to thank again our wonderful speakers. We've got Jess, Felicity, Leanne, Maddie, Sharlene, Renna and Deb, and I don't know about you guys, I've learnt so much today, and I'm so humbled by the fact that you've been so open and generous in your knowledge. So thank you for taking the time to do this and for sharing. Look, please keep logging your questions. We will get back to them. We really appreciate you taking time to attend today. And if you have any feedback, please let us know. And again, I wish you a wonderful UN Global Day of Parents. Thank you very much.
I must have been born yesterday. My heart, it changes its mind like a one-way road. I'll never go, I'll never be the girl of your dreams. I'm just the girl that you need. And I know you're not dreaming